Okay, so our last section, 1.5, is on what we call solving and rewriting literal equations. All right, there will be some numbers in it, but the first couple problems we do don't have numbers. Okay, when they ask you to solve an equation that's all letters, your answer is going to be letters. There are no numbers in it. Okay, so that's what some people get a little confused on. They're very used to like, okay, what's the number? What's the answer? Some of these equations do not have number answers. Okay.
Don't know why I want this one.
So a literal equation, okay, and you can write this right at the top of your guided notes, is an equation with two or more variables. Okay, so an equation with two or more variables is called a literal equation.
I'm gonna pay for it.
So to rewrite it, okay, basically means to get a letter alone. It doesn't mean to get a number as an answer. Okay, you won't get a number. What letter do you want to get alone? Well, they'll tell you. Okay, the equation is going to have several letters in it, and they'll want you to get one of them alone. Sometimes it's X, sometimes it's Y. We'll see what happens. Okay, so again, solve the literal equation. When you see those words, you should be thinking, okay, my answer is not going to be a number. My answer is not a number. Might have some numbers in it, but it's not going to be just a number. Okay, it's going to have letters in it too. Okay, so as far as solving it, you basically follow the steps in SAM. Right? Those steps are exactly the same. So let's take a look and see what we got. So solve the literal equation for y. So what does that mean to do? Solve the equation for y. What do we have to do?
You have to find out what number represents y.
No, you're not going to get a number as an answer.
Get a letter.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead, Kelsey.
You have to get like y by itself.
Get y by itself. Okay? In the end, you will not end up with like y equals 2. You're not going to have a number as the only part of your answer. Okay? So, this is what we want to get by itself. Is it by itself right now?
No.
No. Okay? So, let's go through SAM. Right? There's no distributive property here. Is there any like terms?
No.
No. What's the next thing in SAM?
Add and subtract.
Add and subtract. Okay. Is there any adding or subtracting we can do?
Yes.
How about Lucas? You see any adding or subtracting we can do
Yes.
to start to get, you want to at least get that by itself first.
No. Oh, yes.
Okay. What are you thinking? Add or subtract here?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm trying to get y by itself. So what would be my first step to get y alone? Yeah.
Subtract 3.
Is that 3 added to y or multiplied to y? So multiplied, to get rid of multiplication, we're going to have to use division, but that's the last thing in SAM. So you always get rid of the things that are further away from the letter first. Okay? Think of this y as protecting what's near it. Okay? The 3 is right next to it, so it can protect it. It's going to be harder to get rid of. The plus 4x is further away, so it can't protect it as easy because it's farther away. So how would we get rid of this thing that's further away that I have highlighted? Yep.
Subtract 4x.
Exactly. Yep. That's your first step. So we're going to subtract 4x minus 4x. Now, Joe, what's 4x minus 4x?
0.
0. That's why we did it. So that's gone. Now, on the left, all we have is the 3y. Now, on the right, 9 minus 4x. Can you combine those together?
No,
Why not?
because they're not the same. There's
They're not
an
the
X
same.
in one and not the
Yeah. There's an x in one, the other one doesn't have an x. So what can you do? Nothing. Just write it exactly the way you see it. 9 minus 4x. There is nothing you can do with that. Now, some people, I don't know if you've done this before, but you said, well, could I do this? Yes, that's exactly the same thing. Negative 4x, positive 9, a negative 4x, and a positive 9. This is kind of like if people done y equals mx plus b before. Yeah, this one is kind of like y equals mx plus b, right? It's kind of getting it like that. Eventually, we're going to have to do that. Okay, eventually is a later chapter. So if you leave it like this right now, that's okay, right? 9 minus 4x. All right, so are we done? Is the y by itself? No. What's the last thing I have to do to get y by itself? Yeah.
Divide by 3.
Yeah, going to divide by 3. Now, where do we divide by 3? Yeah.
I don't know, but I have a question. Okay, so when you're like trying to get the y by itself, you're just trying to get it on like by itself on the other side of it.
So you're going to have this when you're done.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like trying to like get rid of everything else, and I was confused as to how you would do that.
No, we're just putting it on the other side.
Okay.
So we're just getting rid of it from the left, and when you're done, I want your answer to look just like this.
Okay.
Y equals, all the stuff is on the right. So we got to get rid of this 3, okay? And we said earlier, okay, that's multiplied, so we have to divide. But where do I divide by 3? Yeah?
Under the 3y,
Yeah.
under the 9 minus 4x.
And where, can you be more specific on the other side?
Like, under it, like you draw a line and then you
Yeah. I would do it like this. Do it in all 3 spots.
You can
So,
do that?
Yep, when you divide by a number, you have to do it everywhere. All right?
But we don't.
That's different than when we add and subtract. Okay, when you add and subtract, we don't add it everywhere. Like right here. We did minus 4x from here, here, and here. All right? So that's just something we got to keep straight. Okay? But dividing, yep, you got to do it everywhere. How about, Jaden, what's 3 divided by 3? Cancels out. 1. Now we got y by itself. So now we just finish this up. Does 3 go into 9? Yeah, 3 times. Now does 3 go into 4?
No.
No. So we're just going to leave that as negative 4/3. And usually when we have that, you can leave the x in the top, or you can put the x right in the middle, right? And that is your answer. So notice your answer is not just a number. It's not like y.
It's an undone
Excuse me?
problem. It feels like it's an unfinished problem.
That's it. No, that's all you got to do. So if they gave you a number, then you could plug in a number. But if they don't, you're done. Yep. So keep that in mind. A lot of times on the test, when I say solve the literal equation, people write like y equals 4 when they're done. Well, it's impossible to get a number as an answer with these. Because there's 2 letters. Okay? If I took out one of the letters, now you could solve for x. Because you don't have a y. Just minus 9 and then divide by negative 4. Yeah.
But isn't y equaling the 3 minus the 4, 3x?
4/3 x. Yep. So it's y equals, and it's actually like a little formula. That's what you're going to get in this section.
But isn't that a number?
Nope, that's a letter. The x. Yep. So your answer will always have a letter in it somewhere like that. It'll never just be y equals a number in this type of problem. Now, if you wanted, okay, those people that are familiar with y equals mx plus b, is this the same thing? Yeah, that's exactly the same thing. All I did was put the negative 4/3 first, and I put the positive 3 last. You don't have to do that last step. Okay? Eventually, yes, not today. Okay? So if you leave it this way, you're good. If you leave it this way, you're even better because you're putting it in y equals mx plus b, which eventually we're going to do.
Wait, how do you know when to switch it and when to not?
Well, if I said for today, you could leave it like this. You'll know you have to switch it when we start studying slope. All right?
I hate
You don't like slope? Well, we don't spend all year on slope. So,
I learned slow.
all right, let's look at this one.
After also.
I don't even know how to fix it.
Okay, I'm just gonna change it a little bit. Let's change one thing. Let's make it that. 3x, I'll just rewrite it for you. 3x plus 5z is the formula. Okay,
Thanks for telling me.
so what letter do they want us to get by itself? Amy?
X.
X. Is the x by itself?
No.
No. So when we're done, this is what we want. X equals, and we're going to have a formula in that box.
How do you know when it's going to be a formula? Oh, when it's one.
When you see the words solve the literal equation, so notice how we have two different letters in it? Anytime you guys have a formula with two letters in it, you're never going to get a number as an answer. Okay? If you had a problem like, say 3x plus 2 equals 12, then that's a problem where you're going to get a number as an answer because there's only one letter. This has more than one letter. This one actually has 2 on the right and 1 on the left. All right. Okay, so think of Sam, right? Do any adding and subtracting first, and then multiplying and dividing last. Okay, is there any adding and subtracting I can do to start to get the x by itself? And remember, the x protects what's near it. So it can't protect the things that are furthest away. So get rid of the things that are furthest away first. Yep.
You can do minus 5z.
Yep, exactly. Minus 5z, minus 5z. So you got one thing away from the x, the 5z. How about y minus 5z? Can I combine them together? No. Don't combine things that have different letters. Just copy it down. Except I'm going to write it like this. Y minus 5z. What's on the right side now? 3x. Okay. So have we gotten the x by itself yet? Not quite. What's still next to the x? That 3. Right? So in our problem, it looks like we're going to get the x by itself on the right. So yours is going to look more like this. It's the same. So how do we get rid of this 3? What operation do we use?
Division.
Division. What are you going to divide by?
3.
Nice. Where are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Do it where?
Under the 5z.
Under the 5z. Okay. Where else?
And the y.
And the y. Where else?
And the 3x.
And the 3x. Good. So remember, division is one of those things. You've got to do it in 3 spots. All 3 spots. 3 divided by 3, what happens?
It's just that.
Just x. It's gone. So now we got what we want on the right. X equals, and we've got a formula right here. So we can write y divided by 3 minus 5/3. And I usually put the z right in the middle. If you leave the z in the top, that's fine too. Doesn't matter. But I put the z in the middle because that's kind of what you do when y equals mx plus b. You put the letter right in the middle. And that's it. That's all you can do. Right? If you say, well, what's the number that's the answer? There is no number. Okay? This was a literal equation. Literal equation means you do not get a number as an answer. You might have a number for part of your answer, but not the whole thing. Okay. So actually, it's not that many steps. So it's not too bad on this one. Any question on that one? Okay, big thing when you read it, just pay attention to what letter they're having you solve for. Okay, this one was X. All right, let's look at this one. You guys, I think, yeah, you already have this printed and you got the diagram, so that kind of helps out. All right, so it says you own a rectangular piece of land, and it says, like your house is right here. This is the street over here. And your land goes back 500 feet from the street. Okay, just like in the picture.
Why does it say deep?
Deep?
Deep. 500 feet deep.
500 feet deep? That's how far back your land goes from the street.
Yeah,
I've never heard it like that. But
It goes 500 feet back.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
It's not going down. I've only heard deep as in down. Like, I don't know
Yeah,
what
that's- I
deep
just-
are.
I guess it's just how the book worded it.
Yeah.
So the land goes 500 feet back, if you want to think of it that way. Now, the area of this green, like the grass, is 100,000 square feet. Okay, that's the area of this yard. All right. Now, it says that you have to pay for a new water system. Okay, and the water system is basically a pipe that runs along the street. Well, you have to pay for the section of pipe that's in front of your yard. Okay? The neighbor has to pay for the section of pipe in front of their yard. But you only have to pay for the section that's just in front of your yard. So the thing we have to figure out is how big is the front of our yard? It's called the frontage of the yard. So we got to figure that out. All right. And then once we know how big the front of the yard is, we can figure out how much it would cost to put in the new pipe. Because it's $5.50 for every foot of pipe they have to put in front of the house.
That's a lot.
Okay? So we got to figure out basically the width of this rectangle. What's something they told us in this part right here that's going to be important? Yep.
It has an area of 100.
All right, this is really important. That's how you're going to figure out the width. They told us the area, and what else did they tell us?
That's number
And it's late. What number?
$5.50.
Okay, we're going to need this for part B. 550 will come in the second part.
Okay.
What else did they tell us that's still important for part A?
500.
Yeah, right here.
What's that?
The yard goes 500 feet back. All right, so area. Let's start with that. What shape, I might have already said it, but actually it says it in the problem too. What's the shape of your yard?
Rectangle.
It's a rectangle. And they're giving us the area of a rectangle. So I need to know that formula. What's the formula for area
Pi.
of a rectangle?
Oh,
Pi is usually when you have something circular or spherical. But, yep.
diameter.
So diameter would have to do with a circle. That would have to do with like pi and stuff like that. Yep. Yep, it's just length times width.
Times height equals MC squared.
Length times width. Okay, now, what is it that we really need to figure out in this formula that we don't know? Which letter? A, L, or W?
A.
I think we know A.
The L.
What did they tell me A was? Yep, 100,000. Area of 100,000. So I can actually fill in 100,000 for A. All right. How about L?
Oh, we need to know the width.
Do I know L? What's L in this problem?
500.
500, right? That's the length of my rectangle. Length is always the long one. 500. What's my width? I don't know. So what do I put?
50.
200.
Well, we don't want to just guess a number. What do we want to put?
X.
Letter.
Yeah, what letter should I put?
W.
Yeah, use the letter they already have.
Yeah.
Okay? Just fill in every number that you can. Leave the one thing that you don't have. Now, is this, Blake, is this a literal equation?
Yes.
Why?
Because there's multiplication. Because there's two numbers.
What is it? What did I say a literal equation was?
I don't remember.
Look back at your notes. First thing, right at the top.
Two or more variables.
An equation with two or more variables.
Yes.
Does this have two or more variables?
No.
No. So is that a literal equation?
No.
No. So if it's not a literal equation, when you solve it, that means you will get a number. There's only one letter. So the answer is going to be like W equals 5, whatever it is. Okay. How about, Stephen, how would I get W by itself? think, what operation are you doing right now between 500 and W? Like, how would you read that right-hand side to me?
Oh, 500 W.
And what is that? 500 plus W?
No.
No. 500 times, yes. It's 500 times W. So what's the opposite of times? Division. All right. Yep. So we're going to divide. So Gianna, what am I going to divide both sides by? Yep. Perfect. Divide by 500. Divide by 500. That's gone. Now, what can I do on the left-hand side before I type it in on my calculator? Just to make the numbers a little smaller.
Divide by 2.
Well, even simpler. There's a lot of zeros there.
Oh, take them off.
Yeah, right? You can divide, if you have 2 zeros, you can just get rid of them. It's like dividing by 10, and then do it again. And actually, we might have a small enough number we can maybe do it in our head. 1,000 divided by 5.
200.
200, yep, good. 200
I said that.
is my width. What is it though? 200?
200 feet.
Yep, good, 200 feet. Okay, so find the frontage, or basically, it says right there, find the width of the rectangle. We got it. Now, how much is it going to cost us to put in the new pipe? Right? How would I figure that out? I know how much it costs. It's $5.50 for every foot. And I know how many feet. Yep.
It's $5.50 per foot, so you do 200 divided by 550. Right? Yeah. I don't know.
So think about like if you were getting gas for your car, just a simple number. If it was $3 a gallon and you buy 10 gallons, what do you do with the two numbers?
Multiply.
Multiply. 3 times 10, 30 bucks, right? So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to multiply. $5.50 per foot. So start with that. 550 times how many feet, right? 200 feet. That's the front of your yard. 550 times 200. Let's use our calculator. 550 times 200 is 1,100. And what would I put as a label on that? Dollars. Okay, so it would cost $1,100 to replace that section of pipe in the front of your yard.
It's like a Mario pipe that you jump down.
Did you hit the Mario Kart game?
Okay, any questions on that?
You forgot to add a comma.
You can put a comma or not. You don't need one. Okay, so anything else with that? All right. So on the back of your guided notes, okay, we've got 3 boxes that you guys are going to fill in. I've already labeled all the variables that you're going to put in the boxes. Now, if you needed these formulas, you do not have to memorize them. Okay? I would give you the formula, or you can put it on your reference sheet. Okay? So you don't have to memorize them, but you'll probably see at least one of these 3 on the test. Okay? So, the first formula is a formula to convert the temperature from Fahrenheit
That much?
to Celsius. What's that?
Do you need to do that much work?
Yeah, you gotta do
I
it.
used to
That's
be
it.
so confused.
Yeah.
Because like, so, 0, wait, no, isn't like 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
So I thought that the difference was 32, so I was just gonna like subtract.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not
it's-
like that.
It's a good thought, but it actually, it changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's annoying.
Because
Unnecessary.
if that was true, then that would mean that a degree in Celsius and a degree in Fahrenheit are worth the same amount. Kind of like saying $1 in the US and $1 in Canada are the same amount. They're not. So since they're worth different amounts, they're not always 32 apart. But it's a good thought. Yep.
Wait, so then how much is $1 in Canada?
I don't know. I have to look it up. It changes every day. Yeah.
That's what I actually.
Yeah.
All right, so
No, 1, 2, 3.
temperature, we're gonna maybe try both ways. We'll try a temperature in Fahrenheit, we'll change it to Celsius, and then we'll change it the other way. Okay, simple interest is the second formula. This is a formula that they would use in a bank account. Okay, it's I equals PRT. I don't think I read the first one. That's 5/9 F minus 32 if you can't read it. This one is I equals PRT. Okay, so you know, like when you leave money, like if you have a savings account, sometimes you check it like at the end of the month, and it might have like a few pennies more.
Yeah.
That little bit of money you make, that's interest. And this is the formula that they could use to figure out that interest. Now, interest is actually kind of interesting. It works both ways. If you leave your money in a savings account, you get interest paid to you. Right? If you take out a loan for like a house or a car, you pay interest to the bank. So it works both ways. Right? It's obviously better when the bank's paying you. Right? You don't want to have to pay the bank. All right, so that's the interest formula. One thing that's important is time is going to be in years. So like if you had a problem and it said the time is 6 months. How much of a year is 6 months? Half. Just go like that. 6 out of 12. 1/2. How about 3 months? How much of a year is that? A fourth. 3 months out of 12. So if you ever have to figure out, okay, how do I change months to years? You just take how many months you have and you divide by 12. 3 divided by 12 is a quarter. 9 out of 12, that's 3/4 of a year. 9/12. Now, last formula is distance equals rate times time. So this kind of formula you would use if you had a problem like you drove at 60 miles an hour for 2 hours. How far did you go?
11 miles.
Or you could do something like you traveled 300 miles and it took you 6 hours. What was your average speed? Okay. So D is distance, R is rate, T is time. Does everyone have those 3 formulas? I think the last one, for me, that's the easiest one to remember. The Celsius to Fahrenheit, I always mix that up. It's hard to remember what that one is. Okay, so first thing, let's see. Let's change it to what you guys have. Solve the distance formula for R. So solve the distance formula for R. Okay, can somebody give me the distance formula? Maya?
D equals RT.
D equals RT. Okay, is that a literal equation?
Yeah,
Why?
because there's 3 variables.
There you go. It's got 2 or more letters in it. So yes, that's a literal equation. So when we are done, is my answer going to be a number? No. Might have a number in it, but it's not going to be just a number. All right. Which letter do they want me to get by itself? Yep. R. What if they wanted me to get D by itself?
You'd be done.
I'd be done, right? If they said get D by itself, I would already be done because D is by itself. But they said R. All right. What's near the R that we don't want?
T.
T. What operation are we doing with R and T right now? Multiplication.
Can you divide it?
So what's the opposite? Divide. So what would you divide each side by?
T.
To get R by itself.
Wait, do you
Yep.
just want a pencil?
Yes, please.
You have to give me a ride home though.
You need a pencil?
I can give him
Oh, you going? All right, cool. Thank you. Don't throw it, please. Yeah, don't throw pencils.
Caught it between my hand like this.
You're
Like a
capable.
ninja.
Because if it hits someone, then it's my problem too.
Yeah, I'll paint
You know,
you in 7th grade.
All right, so what do I have now? How about on the left-hand side? What do we have?
D divided by T.
Just D divided by T. You can't do anything with it. And what's on the right-hand side? R. And that's your answer. So we just came up with a formula. This isn't really a new formula. It's just a distance formula. All you did was move some stuff around. Okay? But now this formula can be used to give me the rate. So if you tell me how far you went, and you tell me how long it took you, I can tell you your speed. Because now I've rearranged it to get R by itself. Alright, so let's do the problem you guys have. It says you travel 310 miles. What is that? 310 miles? Distance. Okay, there's one. You drove for 4.5 hours. That's your time. So time equals 4.5. How fast were you going? What letter is that? R, that's your rate. So R, we don't know. But now we have a formula we just made from the original, and we can figure it out. What's going to go in the top of my fraction? 310. What goes in the bottom? 4.5. And on the right side? R. So now we just do 310 divided by 4.5. Okay, so if we round it, the number we get is about 68.9. So let's write that down. 310, what was the unit on that?
Is this gonna be on the test?
Miles. What's the 4.5? What was the unit on that? Hours. So you had miles divided by hours. So the way you write your answer, miles per hour, right? If it was feet in the top and seconds in the bottom, you would write feet per second, right? But this is miles over hours. So you can just write it, you can write it just like that. You could put MPH too, it's the same. But most people just put it like that. Any question on that?
Is there gonna be like this thing on the test?
You can, on your reference sheet, you can write down these
Oh, we
formulas.
can.
Yep.
Can we use this?
No, your reference sheet I will give you tomorrow.
Okay.
Yep, but I'd say for this week, these are really the only formulas we've done. Everything else was really solving equations.
Can you go to the bathroom?
Yep, just saying. Alright, let's try, let's look at example 5. Okay, so example 5 says you deposit $5,000. I'm just going to abbreviate it. Do you guys already have it written? Okay. So you deposit $5,000. After half a year, you earned $162.50. So after half a year, you earned, how much was it again?
$162.50.
$162.50
Interest.
in interest, right? What is the interest rate? Okay, that's the question. What is the interest rate? Okay, so we got 3 formulas. Is this the formula that has to do with Fahrenheit and Celsius? No. Is this the formula that has to do with distance, rate, and time? No, that was the last one. So it's the formula that has the I, starts out with I. Can somebody tell me what the formula is?
I equals
Yep.
PRT.
PRT. Now, we're going to fill in whatever letters we can. All right? Let's start with I. Did they give us a number for I in the problem?
No. No.
Well, let's go through each number.
They did.
This $5,000, okay? So, I, P, R, and T. Does anyone have a question what any of those words mean? Interest, principal, rate, and time.
Principal.
Principal? What is, so not like principal like the school, that's a different kind of principal. What about, does anybody know what principal means
Down.
when you're talking about this formula? what the principal is.
Isn't it like a factor or something?
No.
So the principal
Is a factor.
is basically how much in the account.
Oh yeah, no.
That's the amount
I
of
see
money
principal.
that's in the account. Okay? So, like, let's say you had $300 in your savings account. The principal is $300. If you want to buy a car and you take out a loan for $5,000, the principal on the loan is $5,000. That's what it starts at. Okay? So that's how much money is in the account. So, what do you think the $5,000 is?
Your principal.
That's your principal. That's how much is in the account. You put $5,000 in. Principal is what letter?
P.
P. Yep. It says after half a year. What's the 1/2? Time, right? Half a year? Time. Now, if they had that in months, it would say 6 months. Okay, I'm going to try to make sure on the test it says years, so you don't have to convert months to years. So half a year. 162.50. What's that?
Two.
That's your interest. Okay? So that interest is money that the bank paid you just because you let them keep your money safe in their bank. All right? Does anybody know why they pay you interest? I mean, why would the bank give you money just because?
shake it. Because they just like you.
What do they do with it?
They steal it.
Exactly. They take the money that you put in the bank, and if I go to the bank and I need to buy a car, well, the bank has to get the money from somewhere, so they have money that other people put in it. So it's not really a problem if you had a small amount of money. Like if you had, say, like $100, okay, in a bank account, and you said, you know what, I need to take that money out today. The bank has it. Right? Even though they may have loaned money to other people to buy a car, they have $100. They definitely have that. But let's say you had like a real lot of money. Like let's say you ran a company, right? And you had like a ton of money, like $1 million from the company there. If you went to the bank that day and said, I need to take out the $1 million right now, the bank probably doesn't have it. They can get it. They can probably get it the next
is that why you
day.
can only take out like 500
Yeah.
or something?
So
I thought it was to avoid like.
So the bank doesn't have that money because they lent it to other people to buy cars and houses. So the bank can get it probably the next day. How would the bank get it? They would borrow the money from somewhere else. So that's all that banks really do. Just a lot of borrowing money and moving money around to different people and different companies. But that's why banks pay you interest. Because you say, okay, I'll leave my money there, and the bank says, thank you, we'll take your money and we'll loan it to other people so we can make money, all right? And some people actually do that themselves online. There's different websites where people can actually borrow money directly from people. The thing is, it can be a little risky because, like, if you borrow money and the person, like, let's say I go online and I let somebody borrow $1,000. Well, there is a risk they don't pay me back. So if they don't pay me back, then it hurts them because then they get like a negative on their credit report. But I also just lost my money. So, and it might not be any way to get it back. The person might just say, I'm not paying it back. And then that's a problem for both of us. So if you loan someone money and they don't pay you back, then the next time that person goes to get a loan, the bank's going to say, wait, you had another loan you never paid back to someone. They're not going to give you a loan ever again. And if you apply for like a credit card, they're going to look at your credit and say, wait a minute, you borrowed money from someone and you didn't pay them back, like through an online website or something, so we're not going to give you a credit card because it looks like you don't pay your bills. Right? So it's not a good idea to have a loan and not pay it back because then the bank, so you won't get credit cards, you won't get stuff like that. So let's fill in these letters. Okay? So we figured out what I was. Okay, what was I in this problem? Yep, how much?
162.50.
Perfect. How much was the principal in this problem?
5,000.
5,000. How much is the rate? We don't know, right? What is the rate? That's the question. So let's leave the rate as R. And what about the time? A half a year. Now, before we solve this, I want to go back and just look at this formula. What does it say about the rate?
Decimal for
Right. When we use this formula to solve for the rate, it's going to give me the rate as a decimal. Do people know what I mean by a decimal versus a percent? So let me show you an example. This is the decimal, 0.53. So this is the decimal. This is the percent. 0.53 is the decimal. That means 53%. Right? How about if I did 0.12? What do you think that would be? 0.12. Yeah? 12%.
Also, can you go to the bathroom?
Yep. Right. How about 0.03? That's 3%. So the trick here, if you're not sure how to change decimals to percent, all you do is take this and move it which way? Right, how many? 1, 2. You just put it over there, and then it turns into 53. What if I had 0.07? Move it 2, and what do you get? 7%. Okay. What if I had 0.013? What would that be? Move it 2. 1, 2. What do you get? Yeah?
1.3%.
Yep, 1.3%. Exactly. Okay, so that's how we can change a decimal to a percent. Now, let me reverse it. What if you had this? 42%. Yep, 0.42. Okay, going the other way. What if you had 6%? 0.06. Right? The way I think of it is, okay, if I got to change it to a decimal, I go to the left. 1, 2, wait a minute, I don't have enough numbers there to go to. So what do you have to do? Put in the 0, and that's why it's 0.06. All right? So we just got to remember how to change between decimals and percents. And if you want to have a chart like that on your reference sheet, that's fine, if it helps you. All right? So now let's finish up our problem. They said in the problem, what is the annual interest rate? And we're going to do it as a percent. So remember, the formula is going to give you a decimal. The formula is going to give you the decimal. We're going to have to change it to a percent. All right. What's the first thing, 2 things I can multiply on the right-hand side? Because they are like terms. And I can combine them. Yep.
The 5,000 and a half.
Yeah, it doesn't matter that they're not next to each other. You have, this just says 5,000 times R times a half. So multiply them all together as much as you can. The R we can't really do anything with. But what's 5,000 times 1/2? Yep, was it?
Isn't it 2,500?
Yep, it's 2,500. Now, my last step to get R by itself. That's my last step. Divide by how much?
2,500.
Perfect. Divide by 2,500. Divide by 2,500. That's gone. Now, what are we going to need to finish that?
calculator.
Yeah, we're going to need a calculator because that's hard to do. So we get, let's bring up the calculator, 162.50 divided by 2,500. 0.065. Is that a decimal or a percent?
Decimal.
It's a decimal. So now, if you got that far and the problem said write your answer as a percent, I take 1 point off of that because you left it as a decimal. How do we change that to a percent? we take the decimal and move it which way?
Right.
To the right, how many? Move it to the right, 2. 1, 2. So what do you get as a percent? Exactly. Perfect. So the rate is 6.5%. Okay, any question on that? Okay, so just a reminder, anytime you use this interest formula, the rate always starts out as a what? If you plug in for R, it says the rate has to be a decimal. Has to be a decimal. So let's say I gave you something like this on the test. Okay, you had $200 in a savings account, and the savings account paid 5% interest. And I want to know after 1 year, how much money will you have? Assuming that you don't add anything else to it, you don't take any money out, you just put $100 in the bank and just let it sit there. Okay? So here's your formula. What's the principal in this problem? How much money did you put in the bank? Yeah, 200. How long did I say you're leaving the money in the bank for? How long?
5 years.
Not 5 years.
1 year.
1 year. 1 year. So 1 year. So I saved R for last. So maybe that's what you were thinking. I was just going in order. I saved R for last because it's a little tricky. What does R have to be in this formula? A decimal or a percent? Go back and read it. Anytime you use this formula, it always gives you the rate as a decimal. So what would you put in those parentheses right there? Yeah? Exactly. 0.05. Okay. So anytime you use this formula, you have to plug in R as a decimal. Okay, you have to. And then you just multiply 200 times 0.05 and you'd see what you get. But I just wanted to show you guys how. Okay, any question on that? All right. So that's it for the material that's on the test. So couple reminders. Oh, actually I already had this problem written down. Okay. So a couple reminders. Tonight this will be the last lesson for the week. Okay, so homework worksheet I'll give you. Tomorrow we'll do the MCAS and review. Whatever time, quicker we get through MCAS, whatever time we got left, more chances you guys get to earn extra credit for the test. Progress reports close on Friday, and we have our test on Friday.